Well, I was thumbing through Autosport and suddenly I was besotted by a picture of Ronnie coming out of Casino Square with half a steering wheel lock on, and it was a Formula 3 Techno, and I know, because I drive, how difficult it is to do that in an underpowered car, stay in the muscle and come out of it. And I remember I looked at it for 20 minutes, I just kept looking at it and thinking, wow, how did he do that? Well, I know how he did that. He only do that with enormous talent. So that's when I first met him. That's when I first noticed him. Sorry, not met him.
So following on from that, when did you first get to meet him?
Well, Frank and I went to Mallory Park in late March, pretty cold, to see the first ever BMW Formula 2 engine in a march driven by Jean-Pierre Jarier. So we went to see it. Frank said, "Bro, you going?" I said, "Yeah." So off we go. And we walk onto the circuit, we go down to the hairpin at Mallory, and we stand there. And I look back, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. Coming towards me, with Tim Schenkin, the Australian driver, is a geezer with blonde hair, blue eyes, a fur coat from here to his ankles. It's Ronnie Peterson. I'm already in love with him. That picture did it for me. And I said, "Frank, that's Ronnie Peterson with Schenkin." And Frank went, "Oh yeah." Like, you know, he's really interested. And he came up and we did the introductions. And I couldn't take my eyes off him. What a beautiful looking man, fantastic. And then after the race, well, Jerry had just legged off into the distance. So if you had a Ford engine, you weren't going to go anywhere. You needed a BMW Formula 2 engine. That was the end of the Cosworth Formula 2 engine. Tim turned around to Frank and said, "Frank, do you know the quick way out of here so we can miss the traffic?" He said, "No, I don't, but Brode does." And then Frank said, "But how are you going to keep up with him?" I said, "Frank, that's Ronnie Peterson driving. That ain't Schenkin, who was a good driver." He said, "Brode, I've got every confidence. We can't have those two behind us." So I won't go through the whole story because it's 20 minutes. But we set off out of Mallory Park, went round all the back lanes, just about to hit the main Leicester Road, one left turn, down the M, 500 yards, turn left, Leicester Road, M1, home in an hour and a half. Got halfway down that lane, it's blocked with traffic. And I looked in the mirror, and Frank had now opened up his Sunday Times newspaper, torn a flap in it so he could see the accident coming. So he had the Times newspaper up like this. I had to keep going like that when I wanted to look left. And I said, "Frank, I ain't sitting here with this lot. This lot can do it, this lot in front of us. These two behind can do what they like." I said, "I'm going down the outside." He said, "I've got every confidence, bro." So I go down the outside. I'm hitting 60. And, you know, you're not going to get into a queue, 80 cars that have gone like that. They're not going to let you in, and you're going to look the biggest mug on this planet, aren't you? I'm just about at the end, maybe another 120 feet, and a horse box turns in, so I'm blocked. But there's a mud bank going up, earth bank going up like this, and there was a garage to the right. I said, "Frank, hang on." I said, "I ain't stopping here. They can do what they like. I'm going up the back." He said, "What? I've got every confidence in you, bro." So I go up the back. I'm in a 3-litre Capri. It's yellow. Ronnie's in a blue 2+2 Elan, which is blue. And I've got a diff in the Capri, so it drives up the back. So I go up the mud bank, right along the top, drive down into the petrol station. It falls on its front wheel, then the back slides down, bosh, we're down, and I drive out. And I look in the mirror, and guess who's on top of the mud bank? Ronnie. And that's the start of it. Now, I won't go through the whole event because it was pretty spectacular, but there was a roadblock at Luton because it had Armco barrier down there. I've been on the central reservation for half a mile trying to get off it at 130, obliterated both carriageways. There was a roadblock at Luton that we never knew about, obviously. We turned off at junction 15 then and went across country from Maidenhead. And Jean-Pierre Beltoise and Francois Sever were arrested, blue and a yellow car. One was in a Rheem Bonnet, which was yellow, and the other was in a Matra Simca, which was French blue. They all are. So they stopped those two, carted them off to the police station, locked them up overnight, put them in the magistrate court at 10 o'clock in the morning, got fined huge money, and nothing they could say would persuade the big that they weren't us. He said, "We just drive, we've got plenty of time, we're driving down to Sedova, you know." But, anyway, they got arrested, banged up overnight. They got escorted down to the docks at Dover and told not to come back to England while we were about home. So that was when I first met Ronnie. And I said to Frank, just to finish that off, I said to Frank, "Frank, I ain't settling for a draw in this because I could not drop him." Well, I wouldn't, would I? Look at him, he's Ronnie. When we get to my house, there's a roundabout and 3 roads come in. So I aimed into the roundabout. I said, "Hang on, I get it on the end of the rack. Talk about drifting these days, we were doing it then. I get on the end of the rack, I said, Frank, there's no more lock left. He said, I've got every confidence in you, bro. I'm fan turning around this roundabout. Ronnie can't get the allowance out, hasn't got enough power. But he's with me, going round like this. And we go round once, we go round twice. Traffic piles up on the inroads. Doors are open. People are standing out doing this, like that. I said, Frank, I ain't settling for a draw. He said, no, nor am I. I've got every faith in you, bro. And on the 6th round, I said, Frank, hang on, I'm going left, because my turn was up over a hill left towards Henley-on-Thames. And at the last split second, I got the steering wheel, whoosh, like that, and turned it left. Big broadside, corrected it. Ronnie had to do 7 laps. Got him. Well, I'll finish that off. We get to my house, and he's got silly driving gloves and silly driving shoes.
Right.
Schenken comes running down. Well, you've never heard language like it. Frank said, look, we just pretend that's how we always drive, bro. I said, yeah, that's all right. So I wind the window down. He's folding his times up, which he couldn't read at that speed. But he was telling me that Porsches were now at reasonable price halfway down the M1 when I'm doing 140 nearly. Anyway, so Schenken is going at it, something wrong. Every bad word you can imagine, he's directing at me. And Frank looked forward and said, but bro, what seems to be the trouble? I said, I don't know, Frank. I said, but I said, Tim, what is wrong? He said, and he was going off. Meanwhile, Ronnie is changing his silly gloves and shoes. He wanders in the house, we go inside. I said, Kath, got some friends here. She knew them all anyway, she didn't know Ronnie. And Ronnie ordered lemon tea. Well, I'd never heard of lemon tea. What, lemon tea? What's lemon tea? I said, Kathy, what's lemon tea? She said, what's that? I said, well, give him a glass, tall glass, squeeze a lemon in it, and hot water, hot tea. Oh, right. So he sits down, he doesn't say a word. So Frank, Tim and I are ball aching about this Formula 2 march, legging away into the distance. And then Ronnie suddenly breaks into the conversation, said, in his kind of semi-broken English, yeah, with the daddy Swiss thing, what I don't understand is how can a Capri be quicker around the corners than my Lotus? So Schenken and Tim look at me, Schenken and Frank look at me for an answer. And I looked across and I said, but Ronnie, it's very simple. He said to me, what's simple? I went, Ronnie, it's called talent. And we all fell on the floor. But he didn't laugh, he didn't think it was funny. But anyway, that was that. So I was in love with him then, properly in love. And I never stopped loving him to this day, and I still love him. And me had a charmed life, that boy. I saw him go off on a BMW saloon at Knutstad, doing about 170. It just turned left. It hit the Armco barrier so bad it opened it up and he went into a forest, and it was indescribable what car it was, and he stepped out of that. I watched him go off. I thought, well, I lost my mate.
That's right.
He's straight off, brake broke in half, turned him left. Unbelievable. He phoned me one night and said, 9:30, 10:15. Bro, I'll be around at 6 in the morning. They've got the new Lotus 72 ready for a shakedown at Hethel. There's no, bro, what are you doing next day? It was like, I'll be around at 6 in the morning. Now, I learned very quickly in my early years that if Frank Williams, Tim Schenken, Ronnie Peterson, George Harrison, Mike Howard, any of them said, what are you doing tomorrow? You better be doing nothing, because you're going to have the day of your life. Barry Sheen as well. So it didn't matter what I was doing. Yeah, I'm all right. So he turns up at 6 o'clock and he said to me, and don't you be ready, because we got to go. Excuse me, I'm up at 5:30 every morning working in my factory from 6:30 to midnight so I can go racing at the weekend. Me not be up. He's the one that stayed in bed till 11, right? So anyway, so I'm up. I heard this BMW turn up in my driveway. Opened the front door, he's standing in front of me. He said, let's have a cup of coffee. I said, I thought he was going to be urgent. No, we've got to get a cup of coffee. So we have a cup of coffee. He walks outside, he's got a 635 BMW, one with the wing on the back, saucy looking car, left hooker. I'm going to ride shotgun. You know what that's going to be like with Ronnie in it? I can't tell you. And I know what's going to happen. And he says, listen to this. So we get out there, he goes, vroom, vroom. I said, Ron, that's an 8-cylinder engine. He said, that's what I think. I said, well, get the bonnet up, we'll have a look. He said, I can't. They put a padlock on the bonnet. So there's a little luggage padlock on the front of the bonnet. So I said, oh. He said, look, that's the guy I got a phone when I've done 500 miles. They only want me to do 500 miles. He said, I've already done 800. By the time we get back from Everett, it'll be over 1,000, won't it? I said, yeah. So we took off from my driveway at about 7:15, and we drove all the way to Hethel, only one way, on the end of the rack and sideways. You never seen it like it. And he was beautiful. Absolutely got them out of, when he got it full lock sideways, he just greased it back so it was just came out like that. And I'm sitting there like this, like that, like that. Oh yeah, he drove me around. And when he got to Hethel, he wanged this Lotus around the track a few times, and then somebody said the old man's turned up, and this blue roof got bigger and bigger, and a 2+2 Elan arrived, and Chapman got out. I mean, I'd known him, he'd spoken to him for a long time. Ralph Bellamy designed the car. Ronnie was there. All the mechanics were there. They got a little Honda generator going, making tea and coffee and stuff, and a table with biscuits on it. He gets out of the car, doesn't say hello to anybody. I mean, rude. He said, right, what's happening? So Ralph Bellamy goes through what's happening. So Ronnie gets in, squirts it around a few more times. It's only a little track, it's made of cement, and it was lined with 100-gallon fuel drums. I think about 100, you know, tall. And I thought, Jesus, go off here, and one of those hits you, you're history. I thought, and all big rusty old things. So Ronnie comes in and gets out. He said, right, what I want you to do, Ronnie, is go back to the top of the straight, stop, do as much as you can non-wheel spin start, whack it through the gears, full revs, and when you get there, he said, not next to that drum, pointing up the drum, which had a bit of shell left on it, paint left on it, he said, I want you to hit the brakes as hard as you can, but don't lock a wheel, and pull the car up, and then go around and come back in again. So he says, okay. So Ronnie gets in the car, and he goes, he comes flying down this track straight toward us. It's not very long. Hits the brake, and the front goes, boom, like this, followed by the front left wheel going, boom, and the right wheel going, boom. And he came, well, of course, the mechanics are heading for the hills. He came past us with this funny noise. If you hear aluminium being ground on cement, it has a very distinctive noise. Past us, and I went, Ralph Bellamy and I, Chapman just stood there like that. Ronnie stopped about 50 feet past us, so we all walked up to him. He's trying to get out of the car because he's got these big Goodyear tyres on top. And Chapman went to the front, and I know this is true because I was there. He went to the front, he looked at all these bent wishbones, and then like that, and then he went the other side and looked at it, then he went the other side, and he stood back, and he said to Ralph Bellamy, he said, Ralph, build another set of front suspension, 1 gauge thicker. I just walked away, got in his car and disappeared. So that was the Lotus load test. All right, I just finished the story. We drive out the place. Ronnie's on his overalls. He always drove with his overalls on because there's no facilities anymore. Something I copied. The worst day's work you ever did was changing into overalls on a freezing day between two doors. Your bum on show to everybody. It's not good if you get stopped by the police. Twice I've been stopped with race overalls. You look a dick. Anyway, we drive back, and Ronnie's in a bit of shock. He's been doing 160 down the straight, confronted by 2 wheels, and we drive out of it. And I looked at my watch, 6 o'clock. We're going to get back by 2 o'clock. Means I've wasted 5 hours. And when Ronnie's gone, I've got to go to my factory and do 5 hours work because it's full of stuff. Everybody wants their work, so I'll be working at midnight. So he goes out, I'm sitting there, I looked across him, and I let him do it for a few miles. We get onto the A11 or whatever it was, we get to a roundabout, well, normally he's coming out with the end of the rack like this, out that Brode, because I'm here. I said, here, Ron, this rate, we won't be home by Christmas. Is there something wrong with you? And he went, oh, all right. Gave it 7 grand, put it in second gear, and we rear-ended all the way back to Maidenhead. Yeah, have I been in with him? Oh, my God.
And you were best man?
Yeah, best man well, it's an interesting story. He went to, in the off-season, he went to Barbados for a holiday. And Ronnie and Barbro, and Kath and I, and Kath didn't realise it, but I'd organised it through a friend in Barbados to get married. So I said to her the night before, 9 o'clock, I mean, there's no point in jumping into this. You can always change your mind, but it's 9 o'clock at night. We're going to get married at 9 in the morning, so she got 12 hours. She was in the shower. I could see her silhouette through the frosted glass. I said, oh, by the way, Kath, I said, if you want to get yourself married, I've organised for 9 o'clock in the morning. I said, did you hear me? She said, I feel sick. And then she got out of the robe and she said, but Brode, I haven't got a dress. I mean, that's amazing. Commit yourself for life, and the only thing you're worrying about is a dress. So anyway, I said to Ronnie when I went to the town hall and the minister who's going to do the wedding, I said, listen, I've got 2 of these bits of paper. Sign there. I'll do the rest. You and Barbara get married under the palm trees, in the sun, a lapping beach. I said to the minister, Minister, this has got to be a 3-minute ceremony. Oh, my child, he said, 3 minutes, that's cutting it really fine. I said, no. I said, we're on at 9 o'clock, at 3 or 4 minutes past 9, we got muffins and champagne and the photographers. I said, then Ronnie and I got a serious game of gin running because I'm down $500,000. $500,000, is that dollars or sterling? I said, no, I said, it's sterling. Oh my God. Anyway, so that's it. And he looks at the paper, Ronnie, and he said, nah, I can't do it. I said, Ron, no. So we get married, that's it, we go and married. I said, and then on the plane going back, Ronnie says to me, he looks back, the girls are behind, he said, Bro, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He said, are you really married? Because it took so long, so quick. I said, well, the way I look at it, Ron, it's got to be contestable. And him and I just, he knew what contestable meant, and we, I laughed our heads off. Anyway, the end of that story is, 3 months later, Barbro, his girlfriend, is knocked up with what's going to be Nina. And he said to me, I should have taken your advice. She conceived in Barbados. And only 4 years ago, Nina, beautiful looking kid, said to me, Brodie, if I ever had a tattoo, we'll be here and it'd be saying made in Barbados. I said, you should have taken my advice. So they had a wedding ceremony, I was best man, at Maiden Town Hall. And I thought, well, we're going to lighten this up. I had a nice Bentley at the time, so we're going to use that. So I went to Berman and Nathan and hired a chauffeur's outfit, proper thing, cap, the tunic, the gauntlets, the gauntlet gloves, the boots and everything. And I turned up at his house. He opened the door and he went, Barbara, Brodie's only got a chauffeur. I said, you twat, it's me. Good God, Barbara, it's Brodie. And he said, how can you be my witness now? I said, Ronnie, start thinking, it fits. You're getting married on the wing, nobody knows about it, your parents. I said, you didn't have a witness, so you got the chauffeur to do it. They don't know me. Oh yeah, he said, that works. Barbara, it's all right. So we got married, and that was that. He never, ever blew his own trumpet, ever. But we're coming back from Brands, and he was absolutely furious that Chapman, and he had Andretti as his partner, wouldn't give him a new set of tyres because he knew he could go quicker on new tyres. And we're in his car driving back. He's driving. Oh, no, I'm driving. That's right, he's sitting there. And he's telling me the story. And he looked at me and he said, they wouldn't put the new tyres on. Chapman said to me, no, you're going too quick as it is. So I said, well, put the hardest tyres you got on. I need to do more laps. He said, Brode, I went a second quicker on those hard tyres. And he said to me, and he looked at me and he said, and I want to tell you something, you're sitting there. He said, I want to tell you something, Brode. You got to be a good driver to get on pole position at Brands Hatch. So I said, well, I'm glad you're saying that, Ron. He said, why is that? I said, because I'm on pole position in my race, and Frank's in pole position, Frank Williams, in his celebrity race. I said, so we're all on pole position. And we all laugh about that. So that was the only time he ever, but he did say to me once, are you going to Monaco? And I said, yeah, Kath and I are going to Monaco. He said, good. Kath, pack your evening gown. You pack your zoot suit, Brode, because I'm going to win the race. And we'll have supper with Princess Race and Grace Kelly afterwards. I'm thinking that's going to be 6 of us maybe. It wasn't. It was 60 of us. So, but he goes out and wins a race. And I remember when Kath, we got one case, she says, Bro, do I really have to pack this? I said, well, you know what he's like? Said he's going to win. She said, but he's always going to win. I said, but he's got a new chassis this time. So she went, and he won the race. So that was nice. He never talked about Emerson to me, but I know he liked him enormously. Yeah, he loved him. So he was a lovely boy. Yeah, and Emerson's a nice guy. You couldn't help but like him. I used to go running with him at race meetings, and he was just the nicest fella, I can't tell you. And I knew his wife, I think it was Mary Elena. That's right. Yeah, Mary Elena, and we all got quite friendly at race meetings. Chapman, he had gigantic respect for, I can't tell you. He said, one day he said, Brode, let me tell you something. Chapman had sat in the back of my car, my Bentley, with Ronnie next to me in the passenger seat, and I was in the driving seat for 3 hours in the paddock at Silverstone. I mean, not 1 hour, not 2 hours, not 3 hours, just questioning Ronnie on how the car handled. And in the end, and it was just, and Chapman's making notes, pages of notes, writing it all down. Hang on, writing it down, next page. And what about this, what about that? Anyway, Chapman gets out of the car. I said, Jesus, Ronnie, that's 3 hours. He said, Bro, let me tell you something. I've done that before. The car is junk, you can't drive it. You're turning, it's skidding here, it's doing this, it's doing that. I spend 3 hours with him. He works till 4 in the morning. And on the warm-up lap, it's a totally different car. He said, this car tomorrow will be a different car. He said, the man's a genius. So he had enormous respect. And you'd have to, wouldn't you?
Of course. Absolutely.
Oh, he was a darling. He didn't have I don't think he had a mean bone in his body. And I'd get upset for him. I'd be saying, but Ron, you can't do this. And I remember Barbro calling me. He did the Dutch Grand Prix, and they had, and this is at Zandvoort. Is that Dutch? Yeah, I guess it is. And they booked Zandvoort for Monday for testing. And I knew he'd gone on at Tarzan. That's flat out, 175, 180. Hit the brake pedal, no brake, straight off. And a post hit him on the head and knocked him out for an hour or two. And he spent 2 days in a hospital. And then Barbara phoned me up and said, Brode, can you pick Ronnie up at White Waltham, which is our local little airport? He's got a searing headache. Drive him back gently, please. I said, don't worry. So I went there, drove him back gently. And about 3 days later, he came round, we're having a cup of coffee. And he said, I'm really worried about driving this Lotus now. I said, why is that? I didn't know any of this. I said, why is that, Ron? He said, well, I've just looked through my diary this morning. That's my 11th semi and total brake failure. I said, stop that a minute. I should turn this on. Yeah, so he looked at me and he said, I said, what are you worried about? He said, I've been through my diaries this morning. He said, that one at Zandvoort is my 11th semi and total brake failure. I said, how many? He said, 11. I said, how long? He said, in the last 2 years. Well, let's say that's 15 races a year. So 30% of all his races and testing, he's had semi and total brake failure. I mean, I've had it twice. It's the worst nightmare of your life. I mean, for split seconds you think you're going to sort it out, then you know you're not, and then you've got to say to yourself, well, I'm going to have the accident. How am I going to solve that? I mean, it's just horrendous. I said, 11. So I thought about it and I said, Ron, if you get halfway through the season and you don't let Lotus know that you're concerned about this, and you end up breaking your legs, getting paralysed or whatever, I said, if you sue them in an English court, a judge is going to say, well, you knew you had all these accidents, why don't you say something about it? I said, so you've got to write a letter. So I wrote the letter to Chapman. I still got a copy of it. So I wrote the letter, just 1 page, phoned up Stefan, lovely manager he had, Stefan Svenby, lovely boy. And read the letter. So I read it nice and slowly, 2 lines at a time. Yeah. Okay, put Ronnie on. Ronnie came back, said we send it. So we sent the letter. And it virtually said that 11 semi and total brake failures in 15 months, or whatever it was way above what he should expect in his profession. And that was it. So the letter went off. Nothing ever happened about it, but at least it was lodged with Lotus. Yeah. I got the letter somewhere.
Do you think Ronnie would have been world champion?
I don't have any doubt about it. He just didn't have the knack of getting the right car at the right time. And I remember when we were in Barbados, he got called away, and it was a call from Lotus. And he came back, and we were playing our Jim Rummy, and I'm now $1 million out of pocket, because he's doing it for about 100 quid a point, and he was keeping a list of everything. Oh, he meant it, right? I was about to lose my house. Eh? Anyway, and he came back, and he sat down, and he looked like death. I said, Ron, what's happened? And he said, Peter War has been lying to me for 4 months. I can't go to Shadow. I said, oh, Ron. And his eyes filled with water. And he stood up, went away, and never saw until the next day. Yeah. And I don't know whether Shadow would have been the car for him. I don't know. But, you know, if you look at Hamilton, for instance, he steps out of one good car into a better car. And some guys, Jackie would have had it. They had the talent of doing that.
Fangio had it.
Who?
Fangio.
Oh, yeah, Fangio, yeah. Yeah, you know, he didn't start till he was about 87, did he? So, so Ronnie didn't have the best car at the best time, but he was, I mean, I knew all those guys. Nobody could drive like him. He was just phenomenal. Yeah. So I think he'd have been a champion, yeah. You know, that's the worst thing about a guy dying like that is, all right, they've died. And people say they died doing what they love best. That's not right. That's wrong. What they love best is coming home and telling their mates about the weekend. That's what they love best, right? Making us all laugh, making us cry, make us upset and stuff like that. That's what they love best. And the bit that really gets me is you never get to see what they were capable of. And that's the tragedy. You don't see what they were capable of. And that's the tragedy with Ron. And I still cry for him. Oh dear. There you go. No, it's just that he was a gorgeous man. I count my blessings that I got to know him when I did. And I've never forgotten that picture in Autosport. Maybe I'll find it somewhere. Simon Taylor have a picture of it. And if you can fall in love with a guy looking at a picture, and I mean a man thing, then that was it. Because I knew what it took to get that car like that and keep it sliding on full throttle, because it got no horsepower. And that was a Swedish techno car. And he was nothing. The years that I knew him and Barbro and Nina were nothing but a delight. And it sickens me that we can't grow up together, get older together. Tragic. And I saw her at a celebration of Ronnie's life at Anderstorp, maybe 6 years ago. And I remember going up the stairs to the green room and seeing her and thinking, oh my God, look at that. She looked fantastic, beautiful. And these kids are running around, her husband, and he comes back. And she looked at me and she went, 5 minutes. And she knew me. She was born. I knew her since the day she was born. And she grew up with my kids. And so I went and sat down in the chair over to the right. And she was talking to King Gustav, all in English, with a bunch of guys around. And then she left, came over to me. I stood up and she gave me a really lovely hug. Not one of those, how you doing hugs. Great to see you hugs. And I thought, oh, this is nice. And I looked at her, I said, Nina, you look fantastic. Oh, thanks, Brode. And she said, look, you've got to meet the king. And this is going to be tough for me to say this. So she walked over to the king and she just interrupted him. There's like 10 people there. And she said, didn't say King Gustav. She said, King, I want to introduce you to David Brodie. He was my daddy's best friend in England. Well, that gets me going now. I didn't know that. So, yeah.
Nice.
One of the magic moments. And that still upsets me.
Of course.
I didn't know it was his best mate.
Yeah. Nice.
There you go. That's my mate, Ronnie.